Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show. And as you can see, by the way, featuring Clay Hall, and then further featuring our guest for today, Brian Kight. We're going to get to him in just a moment. As you can see, I'm in a remote location. I'm actually down in Sneads Ferry, North Carolina. I'm house sitting my daughter's house. She's in San Clemente, California. That's about as deep a details I'm going to go into right now. But she has a dog the size of a Maine black bear, and I'm down here watching him, etc., and taking a little respite. By the way, Clay and Brian, we're supposed to get hit by a winter storm down here. It's probably supposed to hit Columbus too in the next several days. We're supposed to get a big ice storm down here, so I'm hunkering down and thinking I may not be back to Columbus for like a couple of 3 or 4 weeks. Kind of like the Donner Party. I hope it doesn't get to that.
Yeah, I thought about that.
But the bottom line is, man, the world has changed dramatically in the last 72, 96 hours. Most dramatically, I think the most dramatic change has been Paul Feinbaum finally getting on the internet and admitting he was wrong about Indiana and about the Big Ten, and that in fact the mea culpa is not really the right, mea culpa, in the sense of he admits now the Big Ten is the dominant conference in major college football, and so the Earth didn't stop rotating, Clay, but my goodness, that was a major moment, right?
No question about it. Yeah, I've seen Feinbaum's remarks, and he did it with his head a little bit down like this.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Well,
so why don't we start
prepared.
there, Brian? Yeah. Brian Kight, thank you for joining us today. It's nice to have you, and we'll connect the dots a little bit with your dad as well. Your late father, who was so instrumental in the 2014 national championship run. Urban Meyer thinks so highly, not only of the both of you, but the E+R=O, as he detailed to many a reporter about the development and success of that team. Your dad, interesting fellow, an athlete at OSU, UCLA, later went to seminary, became a pastor, planted a church in San Diego, later migrated back this way. And the two of you really commanded and we're all over that equation that was so important. I take it, and what I can tell from the research, you're still in that venue in terms of, do you call it motivation? Because on your website, it's leadership, culture, and discipline. Tell me a little bit about that before we hit the Hoosiers.
Yeah, well, first things first, Tim said he's house sitting for his daughter who is in San Clemente. I grew up in San Diego, in Southern California.
There you go.
And San Clemente is right in between San Diego and LA, where I grew up. And San Clemente is where I grew up surfing. There's a big power plant there, and there's great surfing off of right there in San Clemente. So when you said San Clemente, and then Clay, you said the snowstorm, I was immediately reflecting back to my senior year of high school, where I decided that the place where I was going to go to college and play football while living on the beach was in Worcester, Ohio.
Okay.
And I said, I'm going to go do that. So I'm now thinking that I might just go to San Clemente this weekend and go surfing because I've been inspired here. So, no,
Brad, real quick. Hey, Brad, by the way, my daughter's significant other is a captain in the Marine Corps. So that's why they're out there.
And
he's got
right there.
He's got duties out there for several days. Exactly. So
yeah,
I just wanted to interrupt that. And by the way, and one of my favorite places on earth is the City Square Steakhouse in Worcester. So there you go.
There you go. All of it. And that, that kind of to connect the dots, the quick version of my story was, my dad grew up here in Worthington, right back there was one Worthington, Thomas Worthington High School. Kind of cool. My son got to play basketball at Kilbourne. We went right by the high school, and this is where Grandpa was. It was super cool for him. Bummer. Obviously, my dad's not here to be able to see and experience that, which would have been fun. But I grew up in California, played football at Worcester, And while I was at Worcester, what I recognized, and, not everybody can see, right? My joke when I'm on stage is, you guys can all tell I played college football just by looking at me. Like, you look at me, man, look at that guy. He must have played college football. And it's because I'm 5'9", 160 pounds. Nobody thinks of that. And, my learning when I played college football was we train the body. We train technique. We train assignment. We train in the weight room. We train the depth of your squat. We train all these things physically.
Sure.
Like incessantly, forever. Like, I played safety. I started for 4 years. We practiced backpedaling.
Yeah.
Until
you had to.
And yet we never taught discipline. We never taught focus. We never taught emotional management. We never taught how to handle pressure. We never taught how to handle stress. We never taught kids how to be coachable. Yeah. So as a player, I saw that. And the quick version was, as a player, I saw that. I wanted to, and that was what made me a good football player, was not my physical talent, but, we might call it like processing speed. I call it just behavior skills, right? And I practiced a little differently. I compete a little differently. I trained a little differently. Not superhuman, just with an element, an area of discipline that I applied to athletics. Ironically, that I did not apply to my academics, but I'm not the first one to do that. Probably why I own my own business. Right. And so I left college. Ironically, I actually studied urban at Florida at the end of my college career, and a few others, Trestle and a few others, with this question. I wanted to know who helps coaches get better. Like, who coaches, simply stated, who coaches coaches? Like, where do you learn how to, and then how do coaches develop their staff? And I went, I interviewed, Trestle and a bunch of people on his staff, and there was a Worcester grad who was there, and Urban staff, and a bunch of others, a couple guys up at Walsh, all these other places. And I was shocked to find there was no plan. This is in, I don't know, 2000, somewhere in that, 2000, 2003 range.
Not the dark ages.
No, not the dark ages, but also, 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
And I was shocked to find out, like, nobody did anything. Mm-hmm. Like, they would go to clinics, but they would go to clinics and learn some X's and O's, or just like talk to guys that they knew.
And you found a niche.
And ironically, so I said, okay, I'm gonna go do that business. Right? And my dad was doing leadership development. He was doing, he did like sales training, and he did like keynotes, and we talk about behavior skills. And that's where I became aware of the dynamic.
Sure.
We talked about it around the dinner table and in my own athletics. And, he was a huge part of that development. And but I didn't want to work in business, and I didn't want to work with dad. Right. Okay. And so I said, I'm going to go work with coaches. I'm going to go coach coaches. Okay. Now here's what I want you guys to imagine. I want you to imagine how many coaches do you think hired a 23-year-old to teach them how to be better coaches?
Yeah.
The answer is zero.
They looked at you.
Zippo.
None. I mean, I couldn't get a girls' high school volleyball team, soccer team to even give me a second meeting. I mean, zero. We even met Trestle a few times, and we got fully senatored. I mean, complete senator, right? Which was, that's MO, and that's him. That's how he did it. No problem, right? Yeah. So ironically, I worked in business for the first 10 years of my career, ended up as taken over as CEO of Focus 3. That was the company that my dad had run. I was technically the first employee. So when I say took over as CEO, it was him. And then I was working with him for 10 years. I worked in businesses all over the world, big accounting firms, hospitals, manufacturing firms, banks, all over the place. No sports teams for 10 years. And then the first sports team that we worked with was Urban at Ohio State. And that was because we met, and then he asked what we did. My dad told him what we did. He asked us to come down and observe a leadership meeting. We observed it. And he said, give me a one-page feedback, write it out on one page. And what we wrote back is great content. It's exactly what you would imagine an Urban Meyer leadership 30-minute session would be.
Sure.
But it was basically like spraying them with a fire hose and then wanting them to make use of the water. Right? Like it doesn't work.
Right.
So we said, good content, no system. You need a system. He said, do you have that? We said, we sure do. Took the meeting, and ironically, there's a longer story. Maybe if you have your bleeps ready, I won't use it. But I got 30 seconds into the explanation, and he stopped the meeting. And I thought he was going to kick us out. Okay. And he looked at Mickey Marotti, and he said, "We're doing all of this. Get on board."
No kidding.
30
there
seconds.
We go.
30 seconds in. And
I'm hooked him in 30 seconds.
I'm telling you, 30 seconds. And then we went and we sat down in Mickey's in the weight room, and we were just talking afterward. And Urban came in about a half hour later, and he said, "What are you guys doing for the next hour?" And we said, we don't have anything on our schedule. And he goes, I'm going to bring the whole staff into the staff room. And he goes, come do an hour with our staff right now. Brought us in, did a whole hour with the staff right away. And then it was just off to the races. And And that was 2000. That was between 12 and 13. So after he went undefeated and then before. And so that was the origin of how we weren't working with sports teams before, but it was my intent. So I kind of started it, crashed, 10-year gap where I worked only in businesses, and then re-entered at Ohio State with Urban Meyer, which was like starting on the mountain peak. It was a very weird place to start, right? You usually kind of build your way up.
Bingo.
We built our way up in the business side, not on the sports side. And then from then, obviously the rest of the story is the national championship 2 years later. And then all the rest of the stuff blew up. And, now it's half of the work that I do is with coaches in every sport.
Tim, before we go back to you, I want to play this audio that Jeff Thidoff, our technical crack guy with operations, etc., found from Brian. We want to listen to that, and then we'll head back down south.
Everything about life, whether it's parenting, marriage, fundraising, leadership, decisions, whether it's bouncing back from a tough loss, whether it's navigating through crisis or adversity or maximizing and capturing opportunity, it's not about the event. It's about the response. And producing the best outcomes will always go not to the people who experience the best events, but to the people who engage in the best responses. And oftentimes the people who earn the best outcomes experience the most challenging events, but within themselves engage in the best response, and they turn a difficult event into a brilliant outcome. And other people kind of ask how, and they say it's a very simple equation. I simply did not let the circumstances of this dictate how I responded. I chose how I responded.
Go right ahead. I know you wanted to talk about the Hoosiers a little bit and how that has changed life in college football as we know it.
Yeah, no, but I wanted to ask Tim. I said, it's only one team wins a national championship every year. Brian. Excuse me, Brian. I was just talking to your dad. Only one team wins a national championship every year, and y'all aren't snake oil salesmen. You know what I mean? I mean, you're basically what do you think when you get right down to the core of what you and your dad brought to the fore here, and you especially following in his footsteps? Well, what is it? Is it a confidence? I mean, how would you describe what it is that y'all bring out for a team more than anything else? Because hardly any team ever wins every game. You can't guarantee you're going to win a championship. All you can guarantee is you're going to give your utmost, right? And so what do you think it is that y'all touch within a team that makes it better, I guess, for want of another term?
The first answer is somewhat structural, right? So if you ask that question to Urban, for example, what he would say is you gave me a better system to teach and lead what I already believe in.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. There's a handful of things he'd say he learned.
System, as you called it.
System, right? There's a handful of things he'd say, oh, I didn't know that, and I learned some stuff, right? Like, combat motivation was something we introduced to him. Small unit leadership we introduced to him, which he kind of had he had a curiosity, and he was kind of already leaning that way, but we introduced that to him, and he really doubled down on it. And it was
boy, did he ever.
Yeah.
10 units.
Yeah. So we kind of helped. Now, again, he crafted, so that it's not crediting, but it's more, that's a good example of how this good relationship of learning works together. But the big thing he would say is you gave me a better system, and you simplified what kind of felt complex and confusing.
Mm-hmm.
And you and so a lot of times he would say, and a lot of coaches say this, I've always believed that. I just didn't know you could say it this way. I didn't know you could express it this way. I mean, take E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. You don't control events. You don't control outcomes. That's something a lot of people learn. They think they control outcomes, but they don't. Because if you controlled, if you controlled outcomes, my dad would still be here.
Sure.
If I controlled outcomes, I'm guessing your bank accounts would look a little different, right? You might be in San Clemente with your daughter. So would I. I'd be on a surfboard right now, right? We don't control outcomes. We have to create them. But E plus R equals O is putting structure and systems to statements like control the controllables. Life is 90%. Life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you respond to it. I mean, these are kind of these cliches that we kind of get tired of hearing it because it doesn't give us a structural execution. And coaches gravitate to us because coaches live in the world of systems. Our big thing with coaches is you have an offensive system, you have a defensive system, you have a special team system, you have a recruiting system, you have a transfer portal system, right?
Sure.
You have a hiring system. Sometimes it's crude, but you have a hiring system. And then we ask, what's your leadership system? Crickets.
Exactly.
What's your culture system? Crickets. What's your behavior skill? How do you teach college athletes, now highly paid college athletes? How do you teach them behavior? We bring in an outside speaker. We have a Navy SEAL come talk to them. We do. And so you would never coach offensive football the way that most programs teach leadership. You couldn't. Like you wouldn't bring in a new offensive coordinator once a month and have them talk to a team for an hour and a half. You wouldn't have an offense. You'd have a collection of ideas that nobody executed. So the same thing happens on our side is we implement those systems. And then specifically, no, you obviously there is one team that wins a national championship, but you take say, for example, you take the Ohio State team this year. Ohio State wasn't the best team in America, but they were one of them.
Sure.
Like it turns out,
right.
they were a really good team. They just weren't the best team. And you can make a case they were better than all but two.
Right.
They didn't play every other team, but the two teams that played the national championship, Ohio State took them down to the wire. There was a couple plays right on those two games. So we are in the game. We are in the mode of, it's not about limiting ourselves to saying, if you don't win a championship, it's not good enough. Like I work with Georgia Tech football, unbelievable year this year.
Yeah.
I've been working really hard, work with Ole Miss for years, right? Great season. Like those two programs had by far the best seasons they've had in a long time. So if you're not going to win a championship, the question is, did we push towards excellence? Was it a fulfilling experience? And it's just like, it's like parenting kids. I've got a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, son and a daughter. And they're not always going to do all of the things that we want. They're not always going to produce the outcomes that we want. The question is it going to be a learning experience? Are we going to push them forward? And then as they stumble and trip and miss on stuff, are we looking and saying, hey, what outcome did my response create? And what did I learn about the cause and effect relationship between what I did and what I earned? And do I need to keep going and keep doing and keep building on that? Or do I need to make some adjustments and say, hey, that response didn't quite lead to the thing that I wanted. In fact, this outcome that I don't like, I can look and say that effect came from this cause. I need to get better at that. That's what we do.
As you observed Curt Cignetti, what did he, what do you think the secret sauce was for him?
Well, now we're getting into two different things, right? So I think one thing, I'll talk about Curt Cignetti, but another thing I want to open up is a bigger observation about college football, about what I've been working with coaches on for years. And now there's a new thing. Historically, there have been two pillars in college football that determined all results. And now there's a third. And I think it's a really interesting piece because I don't think everybody knows this just yet. But with Curt, here's what I observed with Curt, right? And I don't know Curt directly. We've been connected for a few years.
Sure.
We're connected on X and whatever, change some stuff back and forth. And he's engaged and interacted. So I've known of Curt for a while, and he's been kind of tracking some of the stuff that we do. Like a lot of coaches follow us now. Here's Curt's thing. As best as I can tell, and a coach just asked me this the other day, and I shared this answer. As best as I can tell, here's what Curt does. I think as good as anybody. He's in the Nick Saban category of this. Curt knows exactly what he wants. And he does not care what anybody else thinks.
Bingo. And
he demands it. He coaches it. And he is not concerned about any other stuff.
Simplicity.
It is incredibly simple. He's like, all it has to look is exactly like I want it to look. And he holds everybody to it. And it's kind of why it's also why he stands out, right? So when you look at it, like he stands out because we kind of laughs like, oh, when's he going to smile? And he doesn't think about anything else. He doesn't do this. And his answers are, and he's like, look, my standards are incredibly high. I mean, he just said the other day, I just saw the quote. He said, if you don't get and participate and make special teams important, there is no place for you on this football team. Now, a lot of coaches say that, but then they don't do it.
Do they?
So Curt has a very, very small gap, as far as I can tell, between what he demands, what he expects, and then what he actually delivers on. And he just does not care. He's not comparing to any other coach. He's not. It shocks me, little insider baseball. The number of people would be shocked at the number of coaches. Let's just say in the college game, but this is also true in pros. It's also true in others, Major League Baseball, all these sports that I work with. People would be shocked at how many things coaches do just because other coaches do it.
Copycat business.
And they don't actually know or have any validation
that
it in fact works. They're kind of just copying which is not that different. Like, it's like, I don't know, in the non-work life is like, I'll use the example of like, what do most people measure the quality of their marriage against? The quality of the marriage of the people in their social circle or their cul-de-sac. And they say like, how's my marriage doing? And they're like, well, I don't know. How's it compare to the other marriages I see? And they're like, oh, it's kind of like those ones. And so they say it must be fine. Well, I would argue like that's not a good reference point.
Right.
And measuring your marriage against somebody else's marriage is irrelevant. Like, so for a Curt Cignetti, he's like, I'm not measuring this against what we've done in the past. And he said from the beginning, we're not measuring against what we've done at Indiana before.
Mm-hmm.
We're not measuring against Purdue. I mean, he came in and he said, Purdue sucks, but so does Ohio State and Michigan.
Right.
Because he's like, no, that's who we are going after. And he said, like, that's it. Like, the number of people who come in and demand that and then have this genuine belief that he has of this will work. Like, it's not a quote unquote secret, right? It's just so few people have the courage, the backbone, and frankly, the skill to just hold all that together.
I think Dan Mullen was Curt Cignetti before his time because he went to Mississippi State. He was there 6 months.
Yes.
And he said, if I hear another person say, we can't do it, we don't know how, we can't get there, blah, 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 you're fired.
Yep.
And in 6 years, he took them to number one because he refused to buy into that poor old state mentality.
Correct.
Tim, I want to get into Kiffin, but I want to send it back to you. He piqued my interest.
I want to throw this out there. The thing that stands out about Curt Cignetti is he does seem like a whatever you want to call it, a statue standing out there all by himself. When in fact, as Brian pointed out, and this goes to Urban Meyer too. Urban Meyer had won 2 national championships by the time your dad met him and you met him, and but Urban was always looking, probably still is. I mean, even in the what he's doing now, was always looking to be better today than he was yesterday, and better tomorrow than he was today. And same thing with Jim Trussell, to a certain extent. Don't tell me if you're treading water, you're losing ground, in their respect. They're like race car engineers or race car teams. If you're not getting faster, you're getting slower. There's no cruise control on a race car. And but that's what stood out to me about Cignetti. Is the fact that you and Cignetti have a relationship shows you that he has an idea of what it takes, but you always want to be chipping away. Maybe chipping away is the wrong term. You always want to be adding to that idea to stay ahead of the pack, so to speak, in all kinds of ways. And one of the words that you've used, Brian, is the word alignment. I mean, you haven't used that yet today, but Urban Meyer used that word all the time. And Tom Herman took it with him to Houston. Everybody's got to be aligned, but everybody in their own individual way has got to be getting better to make their unit better. And then the unit getting better makes the team better. I mean, it's just an ongoing process of growth. I think would be the word I would use. But the alignment, you can't just have 10 units going off on their own, where we're going to do it this way. They all have to be sort of like on a theme of some sort. And I guess, I wanted to ask you that. I mean, what did you see most about Indiana, just the way Indiana approached football the last 2 seasons that told you, there's an alignment there that is undeniable?
Well, first, I saw Indiana didn't lose a fumble since week 1.
That's right.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Listen,
yeah.
I played college football. I played safety. So like when you talk about alignment, I'm like, I know what it's like to not have alignment between just our unit, like safeties and corners. Sure. I know what it's like to not have alignment with the linebacker in front of me who is supposed to knock number 2, the slot receiver, off his route. And if he doesn't, he gets so vertical on me that I have to get off my assignment to guard the guy. And like where, whatever, they might get a big completion and everybody looks at me like, hey, you gave that up, which I did. But also the way it was supposed to work was the linebacker was supposed to collision him, but he got distracted by. So, I know the in-depth sort of on the field alignment stuff as much as I will tell you this, open threads. The number one problem in college football that is not addressed, not spoken of, and is under-resourced is staff alignment. I'll tell you right now,
exactly.
if you look at programs that struggle, I mean, because I'm in them, and sometimes I'm working with a program that's trying to get over the hump. Sometimes we're working at programs that are 1-11 trying to climb out. We do it all, right? I mean, I'm always quick to say, like, we worked with Urban. You said it, Tim. He won 2 national championships before he met us. Like we did not save Urban Meyer by any stretch of the imagination. Like we strengthened an already strong coach. He was the winningest coach in college football history at the time, right? So we were pouring gasoline onto a fire that was already burning quite well, which is very fun. But I've also worked with San Jose State, who went 1-11 3 years in a row, and we helped them win a conference championship in 2020, first one in a long time. Like those are both fun, right? But so staff alignment is something that we can kind of pull on that thread. Here's the thing about Indiana, right? So, and people have kind of caught on to it and so this is what I saw with Indiana. Everybody's kind of looking for something, I don't know, magical or there's like some kind of secret somebody else doesn't have access. Everyone. I mean, this is the thing. It's going to happen. Like, you just saw, like, I don't know if you guys saw the Indiana strength coach just got hired to Tennessee. They flew him on a private jet from Miami and announced the whole thing. Like it was something. I was talking to another strength coach at a Big Ten school yesterday, and he's like, nobody's ever done this before. Like, this is not a thing anybody does.
Is there?
And it's because meaning like they promoted the hiring of the strength coach. They promoted the hiring of the strength coach and like flew him on private jets like that. He's like, that's not normal, and it's not. But it's the effect of it's like Saban. Like, everyone wanted to hire off Saban's tree. It's like Belichick. They wanted to hire off Belichick's tree because there's this halo effect, right? They talked about Steve Jobs, right? Like you have this, they called Steve Jobs, they call it a reality distortion field, right? When you enter, when you talk to him, his presence distorted reality. So everybody's doing this with Indiana. So this is what everybody's looking for. But we pull it back. So what we believe in, what I believe in is there's physics to how the world works, right? We know what goes up must come down. Gravity, inertia. We know that there's physics, right?
Sure.
We think of that in the physical world. There's also physics to behavior. There's also physics to leadership and teams. There's physics to every system, and things obey the physics. Like you can't disobey the physics. So even flying an airplane, it flies according to the physics. And if you violate the physics, the plane goes down, right? Like that's just how it works. Same thing in this world. If you violate the physics, it goes down. So there's a couple pieces in teams in college football unique to college football. So historically, the success of a college football team, there was only 2 factors, and that is talent and culture. The only 2 things a college football team needs to consistently win championships at a conference level or higher is you had to have talent and you have to have culture. Nothing else matters. Now that bothers coaches because they get into the game because they like to scheme and do all this different stuff and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm telling you, you go look around. It doesn't matter. If you have talent and you have culture, your scheme is irrelevant. If you have great scheme, if you are Charlie Weiss, right, back at Notre Dame, you can be world class at scheming, but if your talent or culture isn't good enough, you're not going to beat the other ones. So you look at, say, between right up until the transfer portal started, from let's just call it kind of 2000 to 2019, 20, somewhere around that window. Basically, that 20 years. Yeah. You just go. All you have to do is go look. The teams that won championships at the national level or the conference level repeatedly, they only have 2 things in common. They all had the top talent and they all had really strong cultures. What happens if you have when you fill your roster with talent, and we're starting to see this now. If you fill your roster with talent, culture gets a lot harder because you have talented people.
You bet.
And so LSU is historically, right? And I work with Kiffin, so we're going to be working with LSU now. But like LSU's historical challenge has been world-class talent,
no doubt,
but a highly volatile culture where when it's great, they win. And they win high and they win a lot. But when it's not great, it crashes in a way that Ohio State, and it really hasn't over the last 25 years. It never had a culture crash, so to speak. And then you have teams say, like, I think the model would be like Iowa. Yeah. Great culture, super strong, super consistent, but just not enough talent to consistently do anything. So Oklahoma in the Lincoln Riley era, really good talent, really good culture. They won that conference 6 consecutive years, and they were rocking and rolling, no problem. Okay. Well, what happened was this. The factor that is now the third. So those are the 2 pillars. So a lot of coaches struggled because they were trying to win based on other factors. And you had coaches like Urban and Saban and some of these others who understood All you need is talent and culture, and then you can kind of do whatever you want other than that.
But wouldn't you add alignment to that? Because
that's culture.
Okay.
Yeah. Alignment is culture.
And when you talk about alignment on a staff,
piece.
Yeah, you're talking about you do that. Everybody's responsibilities are clearly defined, or does it go way beyond that?
Way beyond that. You know, the biggest problem most college football staffs have right now is they don't tell each other the truth.
Really?
Yeah. They just don't talk about it. Like quite literally.
Well, if the boss asks you what happened on 3rd and 9, you can't lie.
They move it this way. They calculate the price of honesty, and if the price feels a little bit too high or risky, they just stay quiet. They just don't say it. They'll ask a question.
That's interesting.
They'll do playground stuff. I mean, listen, there are the number of probably the most frequent phone call I get.
Okay.
From coaches, assistant coaches, and strength coaches that I work with and I talk to is, how do I deal with my head coach, or how do I deal with these other staff members on this particular issue? And they're not talking to them about it at all. They're talking to me about it.
So the camaraderie is not there. They're all little entities.
It's bigger than camaraderie.
Yeah.
It's it's full on dysfunction.
It's like survival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a what's the most talented roster that Ohio State football's ever had? Kind of let's go with what year is the most talented roster Ohio State football's ever had?
14.
1995 was pretty good.
95 was pretty good.
Was pretty good. Yeah.
Let's go to that. Let's say 2015. You had a bunch of, why didn't that 2015 team win?
Culture.
Exactly. Well, they had culture. They literally had one bad game. Is really
correct. But also that team. You know, you ask any staff member who was on that team. There's no staff member who was happy with how the team played all year.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the most talented. I mean, it's in the conversation for the most talented teams in Ohio State ever, and yet they never showed until they got to the very end. You know, against Team Up North and then Notre Dame, they never showed that. How's that possible?
Yeah.
It was the same team that was there before. But what changed? What changed between those 2 years was the staff, and it wasn't scheme issue.
Mm-hmm.
You had a staff that just wasn't quite working well together yet. And there was a lot of stuff happening with that staff that just didn't like, and you saw it kind of bubble up at the end with Zeke in the Michigan State game, and they kind of had that thing, and you
need the ball,
and all happened. There's a lot of stuff that happened behind the scenes, right? But that wasn't a team culture issue. It was a staff culture issue.
Tim, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, guess what? You know, you guys were around, you know, in 2013. That was a pretty talented team. Got beat by Michigan State in the Big Ten championship. But we all know the defense was not very good. I mean, from a statistical basis, you know, there were a lot of times when it looked like you were talking about a while ago, you know, being at Worcester, the back end not knowing what the front end was up to, or why was the front end doing this, if you follow my drift. Mm-hmm. And Urban addressed that, you know. I mean, Everett Withers went away, went to James Madison, actually. And Luke
so did we.
had been the co-defensive coordinator. And they bring in Chris Ash. And for one glorious year there, you know, things came into alignment. And then all of a sudden, I remember I did this story going into when Ohio State played Alabama in the semifinal. I did this with Shelley Meyer, but I was talking about the Urban and Nick Saban, what they had in common, what they didn't. And Shelley Meyer had this kind of interesting comment late in that story where, you know, Urban has always sort of struggled. Struggle's not the right word, but yeah, he's had some challenges when you finally get a staff together that you really like, right? And everybody is in alignment. And then suddenly you lose one of those key components. And, you know, Tom Herman had already gotten the job at the University of Houston then, but he stayed on for the playoff. My point was, Shelley Meyer said, I'm not sure. I'm really curious about what's going to happen now, you know, losing Tom Herman, because she knows how her husband did or didn't deal well with those kind of changes. And of course, they never won a national championship again after the 2014 season. So, I mean, what you're saying has great validity, because people don't understand. Assistant coaches when you get to the Ohio State level or the Indiana level, you know, you're getting there. A lot of the reason you're getting there is because you you are better than the average guy. And so how do you prove that? It's from their ego gets involved no matter how you push it, right? I mean, from the head coach down. I mean, all those guys on the Indiana staff want to be Curt Cignetti, right, when they grow up, right? And so that, to me, you've really touched on it, in my opinion. That's what really can make a team or drive a team apart, is that little ego play. Agreed?
Completely agreed. And, ego's an element, right? And there's ego, there's fear, right? There is, a very specific example, kind of like I talked about with these conversations, right? Like I could even go back to the 15 team, again, and without,
wait, let me interrupt you though. Let me interrupt you though. What I mean by ego, I don't mean sitting around all day going, I'm the greatest coach ever made. You've ever seen here. Just watch me do my thing. But it's a deal where you're continually proving yourself. You're continually bringing answers to questions, and it's kind of hard to step back sometimes in those kind of environments and go, well, my answer wasn't right. This guy's answer was right, because you know that if you admit that in your brain, the head coach is going to say, well, you know what I mean? There's a lot of things involved with ego that aren't necessarily standing on the corner saying I'm the greatest ever.
No, that's the TV business from
exactly.
start to finish.
Exactly. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and ego is, ego shows up in staff rooms, whereas it's like, they don't want to look stupid, or they don't want to put an idea out and then get shot down, or
that's it.
Something. Right. Here's something that's really common, right? Where there's like a shared responsibility, say, between any assistant and head coach. The assistant has a responsibility for speaking up and saying what they believe to be true and accurate, right? And say like, hey, I think we're making a mistake here. I think we should do this, whatever it happens to be. The head coach has a responsibility for listening to it and considering it and like responding to it well. So a very common pattern is, and also if we're sitting around a table of 15, 20 people in staff room right now, 25 people in staff room.
Yeah, more now.
Now all of a sudden what you have is year after year after year after year, people are building patterns for what to expect in the staff room. So if I'm the DC or I'm the OC or I'm a receivers coach or whoever, and I say something and my head coach shoots me down immediately, like before I even halfway get the sentence out, and kind of jumps on me a little bit, everybody in the staff room goes, oh, don't say that anymore. Don't talk like that. And they just keep their mouth shut. And next thing you know, the coach, because the head coach doesn't listen, or they haven't worked out, hey, how our decisions get made. Or again, let's just say this, like Clay, let's say you're the head coach, I'm the assistant. I give an idea, you decide to go another direction, and I'm just mad. I'm pissed at you because you went another way. And so basically I'm kind of holding you hostage, where I'm going to give you an idea, but if you don't go with it, then I'm going to be mad at you and I'm going to resist that. Well, you had to work out who's the decision maker here.
Right.
If you're the head coach, my job is to give you the idea, not to make the call.
Right.
Once you make the call, I have to go execute it as if that was my idea. And a lot of guys, they never heard that before. So like, they don't even have like a basic function for how do I present an idea and then not be emotionally tied through ego, like you said, Tim, not be emotionally tied to, if you don't use my idea, I'm going to be mad and I'm going to kind of drag my feet on it. And then when it doesn't work, I'm going to say, I told you so.
Brian, I think so many people are so unwilling to be humble or to give someone else the credit, or it's just,
or let their idea not get chosen and then execute a different idea just because you weren't the call. Like, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I don't like the idea that was chosen. If it's the one that was chosen, that's the one we're doing. Like that's the plan we're executing. So I got to go
respect the authority.
Yeah. As a player, I saw this. And the reason on a football team, the reason I see this is I can remember playing. I can remember we would put together a game plan, and we would have sometimes we'd have two players that hated the game plan.
Right.
They hated it. Right. And then they wouldn't play. And then they wouldn't play with the game plan. They would play outside of the game plan. Right. So we would have nine players playing in alignment with the game plan. We'd have two players that didn't like it that would start deviating from the game plan. Okay.
Sure.
So then I would go through this. Let's just say objectively the game plan was like a C. Let's say the game plan let's say those two players were right. Okay.
Okay.
So let's say the game plan was not ideal, not great, it wasn't a great game plan. Okay. Let's just assume it wasn't. And let's give it a letter grade of a C. Well, what happens if you execute a C game plan with only 9 of the guys and 2 guys aren't even executing that plan? What does it turn into? It turns into It turns into a complete failure.
Completely.
So even with, and there's a life lesson here, right? Even if you don't think the plan or the approach is ideal, or it's not the best one, or it's not the one you would have chosen, the only hope of it producing its best possible outcome is executing in alignment with the plan that was in fact decided. And then you got to see what it works. What won't work, and what's BS, and a lot of staff struggle with this is, you have a staff where, again, and this is just fairly common, where you have, I don't know, you have a couple guys that don't love a part of the game plan, and so then therefore they just don't coach it as well. Don't coach it as hard. They kind of they show up to the players, and Ohio State's staff, like Ryan has dealt with this.
Sure,
his staff.
Sure,
where every staff has, right? But I just I have where like I don't love this as much, and then they kind of don't coach it as well. And then it kind of bleeds into the players, sometimes explicitly, sometimes not explicitly. And you actually have sort of internal, I call it sabotage, but it's not so much like, it's not like they're not putting on masks and going in and trying to blow stuff up. It's just, maybe the linebackers coach is kind of like, God, why are we doing this? Next thing you know, the linebackers are like, why are we doing this? And the D-line's kind of like, why are we doing this? And then the next thing you know, like, that stuff bleeds, and it's like, ooh, now the players are kind of like, I don't really love this, and everybody's kind of like, and then they're kind of hoping it doesn't work so that it validates their.
And then Ryan has to answer.
And then Ryan has to answer, and then it's really hard. And this goes to this CEO level of coaching of like, coaches. Ryan didn't, I worked with Ryan at Boston College. Yeah. My dad worked with him, when he was here. It was like super. We were texting after that when he took over. It was really cool because we worked with him he was on Adazio staff. We got to work with him when he was young. It was super fun. And then when he was interim those couple games with Urban and then came over here, he really leaned on my dad pretty heavy for, hey, like, this is my first time doing this. I mean, this is the seat, and so he leaned over. So it's been really fun. And I think Ryan is evolving as good or better than anybody in the game. Agreed.
Tim has talked about that a lot.
It's spectacular. It's by far Saban's. The thing that people don't understand about Saban is he was better at change and evolution than anybody in college football. He was spectacular. Yep. Lane is also very, very good at that. And I think Ryan is right there in that conversation. Okay. So let me come full circle back to this new third pillar in college football that is shaping, because it comes back to the original question about Indiana. And also, you're seeing Ohio State's strategy start to adjust. So historically, all you needed was talent and culture. But if you had, and people don't like, all you have to do is go back and look. Like Nick Saban won with, kind of like Belichick, he won with 4 different playing styles.
Sure.
He won with a lockdown defense and absolutely no kind of offense, the classic trestle.
Yep.
He won with an absolute rocket-powered offense and a defense that was good enough. And he won with a bunch of styles, okay? Whereas Kirk Ferentz, he's had one style his entire career. He's locked it in. He's gone, right? Urban's style was pretty consistent across the board, right? He had some evolution and stuff, but even Urban, I don't think he didn't change as much and as drastically and as quickly as Nick did. Well, here's where college football here's where it's happened. And I work with coaches and I try to get them to understand, like, look, every resource you have needs to go into talent and culture. And whatever facilitates those two things, that is how you get there, period. Like, you do whatever you want. Like, you can run whatever offense. It doesn't matter. Pick your offense and run it. But if you don't have those two things, it doesn't. Nothing matters anyway. Okay. Well, what that meant was, you never had age, because if you had talent, you couldn't ever be a mature team, because that talent would leave.
That's true.
Exactly.
You couldn't have
out the door.
Right. It was gone. Like, just again, if you started getting into the kind of talent required to win conference championships and national championships, make playoffs and national championships, you never had a mature team unless it was completely random, some kind of weird, wild recruiting cycle. Like, it was just completely crapshoot. Okay. Well, now with NIL, what's happening to players who are in that talent window where they could go to the NFL. What are they doing now? They're staying. They're staying in college.
Getting that.
So now, if everyone wants to look at Indiana won this national championship. If there is a reason why Indiana won a national championship, is because they were playing with grown men.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Get older. Yep.
Last year, what was the defining? Ohio State had talent. Ohio State had culture last year. What was the third defining trait that Ohio State had last year? age.
Grown-ass men.
Grown-ass men. Go back the year before, the team up north. They had 34 seniors on that team.
No doubt.
They had guys that were 24, 25 years old. There's a guy, D'Angelo Pons, who played corner for
173 pounds.
173 pounds. He played at Clemson.
Yeah.
With Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Like that guy hit
crazy.
The pick six in the Miami game against Jeremiah. I forget what that guy's name is. But whoever that guy was, 7th year of college football.
There you go.
Okay. Going against a 2nd-year player who is the most talented player in college football. So now what happens is when you add talent, culture, and now age and maturity, which is not only the mental age and maturity, but the physical side, the difference between it. People don't know the difference between a 23, 24-year-old and a 20-year-old on a football field. It is so big. It is so big.
Yeah.
Okay. So what Indiana had, and Curt Cignetti, he was the recruiting coordinator and talent evaluator at Alabama during his time there.
Right.
So he is a world class. People talk about their stars. He built those players up. Like they might have been stars when they started. They aren't those stars now. If they were remeasuring this, these are 4 or 5-star players because he's built that. So now you look, the teams that have the talent and the culture. And so like compare this. Who are the 2 favorites to win the national championship coming into the season?
Alabama,
Penn State and Clemson.
Yeah.
Penn State and Clemson were the 2 big favorites. Yeah. Those were the guys that most people picked, right? Well, why? Pretty good culture, talent all the way across the board, except for in one key position. And they were both very old and mature teams, except they both lack talent in the key position where you have to have it. And that was at the quarterback position.
Sure.
So they were positioned there, but then so in other words, if you have to, that's what every team is doing. So if you look at Ohio State's transfer portal this year, look at what left, look at what came in.
Yeah. The experience.
They transitioned away from undeveloped talent and they brought in age, reps, maturity, because they've recognized if we can find talent that also has age and maturity, the whole equation for how to win in college football is different than it was just 5 years ago.
You might add pissed off as a pillar because Urban says, give me an angry football team every time. I know you're ready to jump on that. I want to go to Kiffin.
Yeah,
so many people think his why is Lane Kiffin. Tell me different.
Whose why?
Lane Kiffin's.
What, that his why is what?
Is Lane Kiffin.
Oh, that his why is Lane Kiffin?
The glorified Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
I mean, many people have asked, why do you walk out on this team? You'll be glorified forever.
Yep.
If they almost got to the final.
Yeah. So I work really close. I work really close with Lane, and we for years I have, and we have a lot of very really similar to kind of how my dad was with Urban, right?
And maybe I'm way out of bounds to disparage him. He's done a hell of a job. He won at Ole Miss.
Yeah, I think this is the question. The big thing with Lane that I always come back to is because when Urban was going through sort of the end of his career at Ohio State, we had been in there the entire time. We knew everything that was going on. We knew all of the different stuff. So we had the private internal vantage point of knowing, hey, here's the public conversation, right? Yeah. And then here's what's happening actually on the inside, right? And we could see the difference between those two things. And it was frustrating, very frustrating. And I can only imagine what it's like for him, right? Well, same thing. So I have the same thing with Lane of I can see all the public conversation and then I know what's actually happening on the inside and I know him and I know what's happening. So here's what I see with Lane, right? My big thing with Lane is, and not just Lane, but like the situation is how much of what we know or what we're perceiving is direct observation of coming from him. It's not a whole lot. It's very little. So if you look at the sequence of events, so Brian Kelly got fired, week 7, 8, whatever it was. Yep. So he got fired week 7 and 8, super, super early in the cycle. If we were coaching in the NFL, there could be no conversations that would happen until not until the playoffs started, and you couldn't do anything until after the playoffs were over. Okay. Right. If it was in the NFL, those rules don't exist in college. So Brian Kelly gets fired week 8. Immediately when Brian Kelly gets fired, what was every news headline before Lane Kiffin said or did anything? What did every news headline say? They're going to go after Lane Kiffin and they're going to empty the bank to get him.
That's right.
So next thing you know, that story got spun up, not by him, but by the people covering the sport.
Sure.
Fair enough, right? Nothing wrong with that. Well, then next thing you know, that story, everybody starts to write about it, and then everybody starts writing about the other stories, and everybody starts talking about it on X. And then next thing you know, it gets to the press conference, and they say, hey, so Kiffin shows up to a press conference, and they say, are you going to take the LSU job?
Yeah.
He's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, are you going to take? They're probably going to offer you a lot of money. Are you going to take it? Because this is a good team. He's like, and you do what you have to do in that moment where. Because I feel like this.
It's a no-win.
If somebody put me in that situation and said a reporter or ESPN or whoever is trying to force me to answer this question and make me declare the future of my life, my career, my entire thing, I'm not playing by those rules. I'm just not, right?
Sure.
So then it continues, and the team is building, the team is winning. And I'm speaking because I've been investing in this team for years, right? This is a super fun season. Well, then it gets to the spot where LSU does talk to the agents, and they do the thing.
Sure.
Okay. And then LSU starts talking again through whatever the mechanisms are. They're having that conversation. They're going forward. You can't stop LSU from making an offer. And by the way, even if you said, hey, don't make me an offer, what do you think LSU is going to do?
Make him an offer.
They're going to make you an offer. And what kind of offer is LSU going to make you?
Hell of an offer.
They're going to make you an offer that you got to stop and think. And so what I would say is, if somebody offers you $12 million to come coach, and by the way, privately among coaches, LSU is pound for pound the number one job in America. Every coach.
Saban told him that, I think.
Yes, every coach knows this. It's the one.
Dude, that's why Brian Kelly left Notre Dame for that very reason. Go ahead. Yeah.
It's because the state, it's the one university where the funds are unlimited, the talent is teeming, you have an absolute moat built around it, you have no competition. You'd be stupid. You'd be stupid not to consider it. Okay. It sucks that it was in a moment, timing, at the timing and all that different stuff. But my big thing with Kiffin is everybody's like, oh, look at the circus he built. And I'm looking back and I think an objective view is he did not create this. He coached a team. He is fun. He is his style. He is himself. He's comfortable in his skin. That bothers a lot of people. He doesn't, it's kind of like, not to be political, right? But it's also like a lot of the reason people don't like Trump, if they're being honest, is he doesn't act presidential.
No, I get it.
Right?
Yeah.
And so put the policy, whatever this stuff aside. Yeah. A lot of people are bothered. Like if you really
by his personality,
they just don't like the way he talks and look. They want him to be more, I don't know, they want him to look like more like Reagan or whatever happens to be. Like they don't even have a lot of substance. They just don't like the manner in which he does it.
Sure.
It's the same thing with Kiffin for a lot of people. Okay. So I go back to Kiffin and here was the sticking point. The sticking point was basically LSU made him an offer for one of the best jobs in America at a number that's ridiculous with all the resources that you need to win, where you can get talent, right? We are working. He now knows, like, I know how to build culture.
Sure.
Right. I know how to do it. I've demonstrated that I've done it. And we can bring in portal. We can get age. We can build this thing up because I can kind of protect it here at LSU. It is the best job in America. It is. Okay. And they're offering me this crazy amount of money to come and do it. And it's a really good competitive situation. And he's like, ooh, I got to think about that. And then Ole Miss said,
we got to have an answer.
But we got to have an answer. And then the structure of college football right now is so dysfunctional that it put both of them into a situation where there was no way out of it without somebody going through pain that they would have to voluntarily choose to take on, right? Because if Ole Miss let him keep coaching, or if he just said no to the job, which respectfully, like, if you're telling somebody to say no to $12 million in the best job in America, and 100 million guaranteed, and you're saying, just for, on principle, the people that say that have never been in the position to make that choice.
They've never been offered.
And I get it. I'm not telling you like you're wrong. I'm just saying, like, I think humility would say, like, take a step back and think about that.
Sure.
So what I see, Kiffin wants to compete. Lane wants to win. He loves the building. He loves the game, but he's also, this is what's part of his personality. A huge part of what he's doing, both he enjoys it as well as he feels like a sense of responsibility and stewardship, if you will, over this is, when you look at it through this lens, it makes a lot of sense, is he is making sure that he is constantly winking at college football for how ridiculous all of this stuff is. He's holding this thing up to say, look, you idiots.
Right.
I don't mean like us, but the people who are running college football and the people who are complaining about this. He's like, look, you idiots. Like, this is structural. This isn't, and he's willing to be like, I don't need you. Like his thing, if you look at them, let them, from Mel Robbins, like, So he's like, if they want to be mad, if they want to be upset, if they want to criticize me, if they want to say this, let them.
I'm working with the system.
Let them. Like I'm working in the environment we have, and I'm not playing by rules that one, don't exist, or two, that somebody else wants to assign to me, as if I have to stay within some kind of box of the way you think a coach should be.
Yeah.
By the way, same thing Cignetti did.
Yep.
Me comes back and he's like, hey, I win. Google me. Everybody roasted him. He's like, I don't care. watch me.
Yeah.
So that's why I look. That's why I look at Lane.
Tim,
hey,
go
Brian,
ahead.
We only got a couple of minutes left. I wanted to ask you this though about Lane. I'm not trying to get you to be a forecaster or prognosticator
Sure.
and stuff, but is he, from your vantage point of studying everything, is he right guy at right time at the right place? You follow my drift? Because I think everybody, when they get, Bear Bryant started at Maryland and went to Kentucky and went to Texas A&M and ended up at Alabama. You follow my drift?
Yeah.
A lot of great coaches have gone on these journeys. Very few have been like Jim Trussell from Youngstown State to Ohio State. You follow me? And of course, he got let go at Ohio State for want of another term. But what I'm getting to here is we look at Nick Saban. Like you said, Nick Saban had to basically lie to reporters at the end of his tenure at Miami because he was intending to get back into college football at Alabama, but went through the same similar dynamic that Lane Kiffin went through this last year, kind of a little bit of different circumstances, but same idea. But the point was everybody eventually has that place they want to end up. Call it El Dorado, you know what I mean? Call it Nirvana, whatever you want to call it. Do you feel like, from your vantage point, Lane is the, like I said, right guy in the right place at the right time? What's your take on that?
It's a great question, and I'll come back to. I got a funny story about that Saban, how he ended up at Alabama, which is pretty funny. But the simple answer and truthful answer is I don't know, because LSU, it is its own unique beast.
Yeah, it can eat you.
It's its own unique beast. There's a lot of and I don't know that, right? It's kind of like if you were to ask Tom or I remember talking to Fernando Lovo, who is now the AD at Colorado. And I remember when he went with Tom to Texas, I remember talking to Fern and being like, he was like, I worked at Florida with Urban and Ohio State. He's like, it ain't even close to what is happening here at Texas. It's not even like the size of this machine and the complexity of this political landscape. He's like, it's not even close. He's like, I thought it was the pinnacle. Right. He's like, it's not even close. So, so there are elements. So the simple answer, Tim, is I don't know. Right. There's a lot of coaches who I know are really slow to coach at Ohio State because they know what comes with coaching here and they don't want to deal with that.
The expectation.
Correct. It's just, it's because you guys know, it's just, it's hard. It's tough. Like you read these stories, you see some of the stuff that happens. And it's like, man, Dan Lanning's gotten crushed by 30 in each of his last 2 playoff games.
Yeah.
That's not possible. That's not possible here.
No,
that's not like they're talking about Dan as one of the 3 best coaches in America. If that happened here to any coach, let alone the guy who's here right now, it'd be pitchfork. It'd be crazy pitchforks.
Yeah. Are you taking a job where you can't lose 1 game?
Right. And you feel like
Ryan's lost 11 and people act like,
and then,
Lord.
And then people are like, well, you make $10 million. Who cares? Like, well, you're a human being. Like money doesn't fix your emotions.
No.
So Saban, the quick story on Saban. So funny story is, he's a head coach at Miami. And if you remember, they were trying to get Drew Brees. It was a done deal.
And by the way, we're talking about Miami Hurricane, Miami Dolphins, folks.
Miami Dolphins, yeah. So he done deal. He's like, I need to be able to. I need Drew Brees. He was coming from San Diego. He was coming off that shoulder injury. Whole thing was a done deal. He's building the entire team around Drew Brees. Thing is a done deal. Got the whole thing. He thinks it's all signed. Alabama's been trying to call him. He's like, look, I'm not interested. I'm not going. Like, get out. Literally not even taking it. Like, told his agents, they just shut the whole thing down. The Alabama AD used whatever mechanisms he has, and he found Saban's apartment and where he lived. And he flew there on his private jet and parked his car outside of Nick's apartment. And he waited for days, waiting to see Nick because he couldn't get a hold of him. So he literally, like a 48-hour stakeout type thing, sat outside Nick's apartment. The deal to get Brees, if you remember what happened was, he ended up failing a physical and they said it won't be a big deal. No problem. Like we're all good, but he had failed whatever the physical. Well, it ends up, I forget whoever it was, but the ownership ended up saying, no, we're not doing this. They had the whole thing.
Right.
And so Nick's entire plan with Miami hinged on and revolved around Drew Brees, because he understood, hey, this is my model. This is how I'm teaching it, back to Cignetti and Nick, right? I do it the way I need to do it. I got to be able to run what I'm doing, right? So that crashes. The same day the deal crashes, he walks out of his apartment and the Alabama AD literally physically ambushes him.
Yeah.
Right outside of his apartment, the night or the morning after the deal crumbled. And he said, I need to talk to you. You've got to listen to us. Our jet is right here. I have a car. Get in, at least come talk to us. And he got in the jet, and that's how he ended up as the Alabama coach. So everybody looks back like he was like he was lying about the whole thing. And the truth, he at no point everything he had said was absolutely true. And then the deal fell through with Brees, and the guy he ambushed him and basically stole him onto an airplane, and it happened in like a 24-hour period.
Well, that's I
mean, Nick was not going to get into any kind of situation again where somebody else was determining who his players were going to be. I mean,
exactly right.
That's almost it in a nutshell. And head coaches in college still have that kind of power. Hey, real quick before you go, I wanted to ask you one other thing, but just to get back to the dynamics, what I call the meeting room. I'm talking, which we touched on earlier. Probably a bad thing for a coach is to speak up and get shot down by a head coach. The worst thing, I would think, is to not speak up when you think you have the answer, because the last time you did it, you got shot down by the head coach. How do you help not just the assistant coaches maybe, but even the head coach learn how to deal with that dynamic? Because it is very touchy, I would think, at times in a meeting room where, like I said, upward mobility is based on you showing you've got the answers, in some form or fashion. And yet in the final analysis, it is a collective with one guy deciding, okay, we're going to go with this. So I guess more than anything else, Brian, how do you counsel guys around that little dynamic?
It all depends on who the head coach is, because there was an assumption in there of moving forward kind of depends on you having the answers. And for a lot of head coaches, that's not true. A lot of your ability to move up depends on you doing what the head coach's answers are.
Yeah, that's right.
And I mean, that's just how it is.
You want to come with me to the next place? Stay in line.
Correct. And do what I execute, or do what I, say. Like, I don't want your ideas, or I want, or frankly, guessing what ideas do you want and what ideas don't you want. Yeah. And then there's another dynamic. And that is assuming that these head coaches have a plan and an understanding of what they actually want to do. And they're not just good schemers. A lot of guys who are good head coaches, they got there because they were good at offensive or defensive football, right? Will Muschamp is undoubtedly a good football coach. Like, I knows defense, he can coach,
well traveled.
He is, he's the man, right? But as a head coach, right, not great. Like, doesn't run a great. That's just not the skill set. Not unlike anything else in life. So, what I work with head coaches on specifically is, how hard is it to tell you the truth? And I think it's, again, something for all of us in life, right?
Yeah.
We all know
great line. Yeah.
We all know the people in our lives. We all know the people in our lives where there's things we'd like to tell them, but we hesitate because we know how they interpret things and take things and how they react. And we know that.
I had this very conversation with my wife, and
careful now.
No, exactly. And I said, I don't want, it's just, we had to have a new understanding. Yes. This is how I feel. It's so, communication is so damn important.
It is. And so this is the thing in football we get there is, I look at head coaches is you got to understand the power that's there of it. Every head coach, if you're on a staff, you're being evaluated, and frankly, people are processing what you do and how you do it, not just against your own behavior, but also against the behavior of every head coach they've ever worked for. So anybody who worked for Saban for a long time, or Urban for a long time, or this other guy, they've been in those staff rooms and they've watched what happens. They carry that with them and into the next room. And so next thing you know, somebody gets in there and they say stuff. It's like, well, you don't say this to a head coach. And it's like, why? Well, on the 15 years I've been coaching, I've never had a head coach who does this. So I look at head coaches and I talk with them about, look, if you want guys to speak up and you want them to be honest, you have to be easier to tell the truth to.
Right.
Like there can't be a massive heavy price.
Mm-hmm.
You think about it. You can't make somebody pay a price for telling you the truth and then tell them to keep telling you the truth. It's like, that doesn't happen. Right. Yeah. So we have to have both sides, and both sides have to have 100% responsibility on that. And then you got a staff room of 20 people, and then you got players, and then you got parents, and then you got whoever's calling themselves an agent.
Sure.
And you realize very quickly,
the uncle.
Yeah. If you want to win as a college football coach today, and this is really what I help coaches with the most, is you got to be a CEO. And a lot of guys in college, they don't want to be CEOs.
Did you help Ryan see the light?
I didn't work not at Ohio State. I haven't worked with Ryan at Ohio State. But that was a huge part of what my dad, was trying to do to help that piece. Right. And then also, like, for him, it was like, it's hard. Like, how do you transition from Urban's Ohio State culture to Ryan's Ohio State culture? And like, what do we keep? What do we not keep? How do we do this? How do we do that? And recognizing, hey, I think this area was like, I'd like this to be a little bit different. And, it's like tough love was something that my dad and him helped really kind of work that together and figure out how to bring that into the culture, because that was Ryan's thing. And that's what we helped. And so, so I'm trying to help Brent Key do that. And I'll turn around, get Georgia Tech building up. And, you got all these programs, and Jed Fish out at Washington, and from Arizona and at Washington, and all these teams that this is the game. And it's hard because, Jed was just basically dealing with a holdout quarterback.
Right.
Now you got quarterbacks like holding out, and you got Duke's dealing with the same thing.
We're going to court.
They're sitting there. They're like, this is not what I want to do.
Sure.
This is the last thing
I want to coach ball.
I'm trying to coach. Like, I already don't like recruiting that much. So,
right.
Let alone all this other stuff. So it's a big deal, man. And for a guy who got in football, and basketball coaches doing the same thing, like they want to coach the game, and there's just very little coaching of the game. Heartline's about to learn this.
Yes.
Is not as much coaching of the game anymore. It's a lot of other stuff, and that other stuff is not always as fulfilling.
Sure.
But boy, those paychecks are tempting.
They are. Brian, thank you.
But you know what?
I'm going to let Tim take us home.
Yeah, no, Brian, I appreciate it a lot, man. I just, I've gotten to sit in on a couple of coaches meetings during my 50 years really covering football. But it's just, to me, the dynamic in that room is always interesting. And I did want to ask you one last, maybe keep this to 20 seconds so we'll get the hell out of here. Do you find your most productive learning aspect about a staff or about a coach? Is it sitting in a staff meeting like we were talking about a while ago and just seeing what that dynamic is all about? Is that where you kind of get a baseline for, okay, if I'm not just here to help the head coach, I'm here to help this coaching staff, this program. Where do you find, what is the most productive perspective that you take that gives you, I guess, the most insight on what you've got to work on?
It's a combination of what I observe in the staff meeting rooms / we'll call it practice field in any group setting, and then the private conversations. And then the private conversations with the coaches individually. Sure. It's that in between space of how much gap. You think about alignment. What's the gap, and how, what are the differences between how we act when we're in a staff room or a team environment, and then what do they say when we're just having a conversation privately between us? Yeah. When staffs are great, those conversations are pretty together.
You bet.
When they're struggling,
when they're apart,
the conversations are very, very different.
Yeah. Good stuff.
And it changes every year, right? That's the thing is, it's not
because the staff's change.
It's not, it's not even with that. It's fragile.
The dynamic.
It's like a family. It's like, Christmas this year is not just like Christmas last year. Like some people are angry at each other, or, whatever. Somebody had to move back into the basement or whatever it is.
Tim, we got to have him back. I've got 15. I've got 15 questions.
Not every kid sitting around the Christmas tree is the same kid either. They're all different. It's pretty interesting. Hey, Brian, man, appreciate you joining us, my friend. I enjoyed talking with your dad years ago, and you too, for that matter, but appreciate you joining us.
I appreciate being here. It's nice. We've been gone out of Central Ohio for 12 years. So we moved back last year. So we've been back since about a year and a half ish. So it's
Welcome
nice.
Back.
Never thought we'd be back in Ohio, but here we are. We're glad to be here.
Hey, maybe I can buy you a steak up at City Square Steakhouse up in Worcester when you go back and tell tall tales up there.
Hey, and anytime, man. I'm gonna have to hide my face. They might recognize me.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, not him again. Hey, Clay and Brian, thank you very much, fellas. I really enjoyed this show. I mean, the insight into what it takes to be a championship program. It's all about the people. It always starts at the top. I mean, if the top guy has a plan but is willing to alter that plan or see somebody else's point of view and improve himself, it's always about self-improvement more than anything else, right, on a day-to-day basis, right, Brian?
It is. Every day. Doesn't matter, get better.
There you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for Clay Hall and for Brian Kight, this is Tim May. Until next time, we'll see you then.
By the way, Clay has left the room. I wanted to let you folks in on a real bargain out there in the world of simulator golf. The Back Nine Golf, which is located at 2820 Fishinger Road in Upper Arlington, has a hell of a holiday box available to you right now. The value is nearly $300, but your price is $150 if you jump online. That's almost 50% off if you jump online at Columbus at theback9golf.com. That's their email address. Their website is theback9golf.com/Columbus-upper-Arlington-OH/ That's a long address, but just write it down a couple times watching it. And you can also call them at 614-362-7888. Parentheses PUTT. PUTT. But the bottom line is one of the new ultra modern simulators that you can find in the greater Columbus area, and it's really right there in the middle of Upper Arlington. I know Tito Thidoff and I hopped in there the other day. I think it was 16 degrees outside. There was snow and ice everywhere, and we played Pebble Beach, and we did it in less than an hour. So it's one of the great bargains going out there, and with this holiday box, you get 1 month of Birdie membership. You get Back Nine branded golf balls. You get cozy Back Nine beanie, and you get premium Back Nine towel. So that's a hell of a deal because basically it's unlimited golf. It's 24/7. You get a code to get you in the door, and then you can go from there. And it's definitely fun. It's the premises are pristine. I know we had a great time. We even played closest to the hole, a few shots on number 7, famed number 7 short par 3 at Pebble Beach the other day, and had a great time doing it. So if you're looking for that last minute gift for a golfer that you love, or yourself that you love, that you're a golfer, nothing wrong with giving yourself a gift at this time of the year. That's the Back Nine Golf holiday box, and it's only a limited time, and as you can imagine, there are only a few available. Quantities are tight, so check in at theback9golf.com.